the first thing clearly one has to do to keep everybody who's going through this for the first time from going crazy is to see that the gods don't mean, of course, anything like they meant in Homer. It's 500 years later. Aeschylus is as far from the Homer period as we are from the Middle Ages. And so it's not likely that things have kept their meaning. And the gods have changed radically. They've still got the same names, but they don't have, not only do they, and they still sort of stand for the same thing, you'll see. But qua gods, that is, what it is to be a god, is totally different. And now we have to understand that. So what the gods were once exemplars of the most glamorized version of something. Let's stick with Aphrodite, the most beautiful woman in the world. And also, that's an exemplar of something. And also attuners. And the job of, this is the Marilyn Monroe function. I mean, the job of the attuner, qua beautiful person, who's actually, looking, that aspect of the attuner, that she is a beautiful person, it makes the situation erotic and gives you a whole particular mood. And so the gods have these two features of being exemplars who put you into certain moods and who therefore open you to seeing certain things and not seeing certain things. That's wonderful, that idea that they've got. But now, Aeschylus has an entirely different idea. The gods they aren't people, or sort of like people. They are different values in the culture, in the cultural practices, in the way people act, in the way the tradition defines what's appropriate and what's not appropriate to do. Different gods represent different practices, different understandings, or different values about what it's appropriate and not appropriate to do. And so the basic ones are the Furies, and we've been talking about that. What do they do? Well, they certainly don't look like shining exemplars of anything. They are ugly and awful. But they do show people a set of values, namely, be true to your family. Never mind everybody else. How you feel is what matters, not what you're thinking. And a whole lot of stuff I'm going to go through later. The Furies have a bunch of values. They have and they have expectations about how people are going to behave if they accept those values. And notice you don't see the gods. The Furies do finally come on stage in the second play, but that's not normal. I think for the Greeks already, it's understood that that's a play. The Furies don't show up in somebody's living room every time somebody in the family gets killed. That would be very weird. And therefore they don't show up the way Athena does, as Mentes, or on her own person. They stay in the background. People obey their traditional practices, and they're sort of called to obey them, led to obey them, even though they don't know what they are. My favorite example of that, I don't know if I've said this yet, but it comes in handy all the time, about standing a certain distance from people. Have I ever mentioned that? In any culture, there are practices which everybody shares, that is, has the same, about when it's how far you should stand from people, when they're relatives, when they're intimates, when they're authorities, when they're men, when they're women, when they're old, when they're young. When you're having a conversation with them, you have a different feel about where to stand, and they have the same feel, so you don't go chasing them around the room. My colleague John Searle says I wonder I don't know if it's true, but he has this funny story of the North Africans chasing the Scandinavians around. The North Africans are trying to get close enough to have a conversation, and the Scandinavians are trying to get far enough away to have a conversation. I think that could really happen. I don't know whether it does. But the point is, any particular culture has this bunch of skills, and the people who have them, and this is what I'm trying to say, don't know them. They just obey them. That is, all of you stand the right distances, and it's amazingly complicated. Because if somebody has a cold, you stand a different distance, and if there's an air hammer in the background, you stand closer, and in the cold, you stand further. In a reading room, you have to stand another way. And we understand all that, and we just do it without thinking about it. And it's that level of values in your body, in your way of dealing with things, that the Furies stand for. That's what and what else do I was going to say one more thing about it. Just a second. Any questions while I'm trying to remember what I was going to say next? Okay, then I'll just go on. And so here we go. If I remember it, I'll say later. There is another bunch of gods, namely the Olympians. That is the pantheon. I kept saying, I noticed in my last lecture, always the pantheon. That's all right. That's the same people as the Olympians. They're the people. Those are the gods. But you've got to know that that's not two different something or others. That's just two different names for one thing. Namely, the new gods, the gods of, I remember. I knew I'd remember what I was going to say. One of the most amazing things is that how did you learn this? Well, the funny thing is, you learned it from your parents, but they didn't know they had it. And they didn't know that they had learned it from their parents. They didn't know that there was even an it, namely the right distance to stand. So you just pick it up in all of its complexity from the other people in the culture, none of whom, unless they're sociologists, even know what it is. And now there was something else I wanted to say about that. So you pick it up, you don't know. Oh, and you pick it up by imitation. That's how you have that. The kids just pick up, and now, this is really not for this course, but it just fascinates me. There's a kind of clue about how it works. We've got what's called mirror neurons. So, and these mirror neurons, when we have them, when we see somebody doing something, we can't help but do the same thing back, so to speak. Usually we can resist it, but the most perfect example is yawning. Yawning is a mirror neuron phenomenon that somehow crept out of the repression. When somebody yawns at you, even though you're not a bit bored or tired, you can't help but yawn back. Well, that's the thing in the brain, I think, that gives the imitation story that explains this amazing fact. Oh, here's another, just one. So all these things that we follow, rules that we don't know. I'll tell you a rule that none of you know, but when you hear it, you'll know that you've heard it before, and you'll find yourself doing it. And it's a sort of eerie feeling that you've been doing it all along, but now you know you're doing it. Do you know that you have to say okay 2 or 3 times before you can get somebody off the phone that you're talking to? And if you listen to your roommate or yourself talking, you'll hear somebody say, okay, and tomorrow such and such and such and such. Okay, now so and so. That means get off the phone. And okay, you see? That means I'm going on to the next topic. My mirror neurons can't resist. Okay, here we go. But notice that this is not monotheism. That is, that there are these sets of practices, 2 sets. I keep having to tell you about that. I'm only going to talk about the Furies until I bring them together. But there are the Apollonian practices, and there are the Fury practices, and there's no monotheism in the sense that they are not in any way put togetherable. For Aeschylus, there's just a plurality of gods, and the gods stand for different worlds. But that you could say, well, that's like the Odyssey. That's not news. That's right. What's new in Aeschylus, and what's interesting and important, is that each set of values, each ranking, each of this set of ways of behaving claims absolute authority over the others. That's the news. It's as if in Homer, you don't get Apollo always trumping all the other gods, or Athena, or Hephaestus, or any of them, and not even Zeus. I mean, none of the gods have some kind of absolute authority, and that's what is new in 500 years it got there. How step by step it got there, I don't know. But now, whereas once upon a time Aphrodite said, not everybody should be swept away by love, but if you're in the world, if I'm shining on you, you will feel that. But not something that doesn't happen in Aeschylus. Each set of gods is fanatically sure that he or she has the only truth, that their kind of value is the true kind of value that trumps all the other values. We're going to get there, I promise. Soon, I have to give you a list of this, but I have to give you the overall view first. So, what's happening? Well, something awful is happening, something tragic, because it's a step toward monotheism. Namely, every one of them says that they're the only true set of values, but it's not monotheism because they're not reconciled. It isn't as if they've been all merged into one unified, coherent set of values. That's monotheism. That's Dante. That's what Nietzsche calls monotheism, because everything is already understood as the same sort of something. Well, creation, God's creature, for instance, which is the one and Nietzsche was thinking of. So, and the bad thing then is that they're not polytheists that respect each other's values. They're not monotheists like Dante, who have synthesized and harmonized all the values. It's just a rocky stage between polytheism, where everything's going along fine because they're all respecting each other, they're all members of the same family, and monotheism, where everything's going along fine. I don't know what the name for it is, but it's a disaster, because there are two sets of practices, each of them claiming to be the truth, each of them even claiming to be justice, which is pretty weird. But the justice means a very different thing to the Furies. It means kill anybody who killed your blood relative. Justice means to the pantheon gods, do something that's rational and intelligible that everybody who's sensible can understand. And later it means do something that the law courts recognize as the right thing to do. That's justice. Then if you pay attention, you'll just see justice being battered back and forth like a ping pong ball between the two sets of gods. They each want to claim they've got it. Yeah. Wait, I can't hear you. Loud.
Maybe that among themselves too? Or is it just the pantheon versus Fury?
No. The pantheon is versus the Furies, all right. But in the pantheon, they disagree with each other. But they're friendly enough so that they really recognize the value of each other. Aphrodite presumably recognizes Ares is important, and is she go to bed with Ares? Is that the one when Hephaestus is gone? I think so. Yes. So there you get sort of war and love, literally in the same bed, and you could imagine. And it's in Hephaestus, I'm just making this up, it's in Hephaestus's bed. He's involved too. He makes the jewelry and all of the beautiful things that make these people attractive to each other. And that's all neither opposed nor unified. It's just a bunch of different worlds that overlap and support each other. Okay? Yeah. The Homer view? The one I just said that what? Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess I wasn't clear. Somebody pushed me into the view that the Olympians, or what do I call them? The pantheon holds according to Homer. So it's the view of the gods that the Homeric Greeks hold, that they are a family, that they support each other, they disagree with each other, they aren't unified, they even oppose each other, but they don't each one say, I'm the only truth, which gets them which is what happens in Aeschylus. I'm glad you asked, because it's things like that seem obvious and aren't. Let me go on then. Where are we? To put it another way, I'm just saying it here. The Olympian gods in the pantheon all understand and respect each other. But in the Oresteia, Apollo and the Furies are each fanatics with no understanding, no appreciation, no sense of the value of the other guy's values. And therefore, you don't have any sense of moving between worlds in the Aeschylus world. If Apollo went to the Furies, they would beat him up, and vice versa. So you're gone. Zeus is no longer the god of strangers and the god of cross-world people. There are no gods like that. There's only just these two forces. Gods are forces now, cultural forces, values in the way people behave, and they don't fit together. Now we're going to get a story about what are these two value systems at the time of about 500 BC Athens, which is where this takes place, and that's where this struggle is taking place. It's being torn apart, according to Aeschylus, who's writing this play about 500 BC in Athens. The culture, if you pay attention, he would say, is being torn apart by these two conflicting sets of values, and if we don't do something about it, we're all going to be at each other's throats, killing each other. And so the next thing is to get what Aeschylus does. And remember, I don't know if I'd ever said this, but I don't think I did. This play is not just any old play of any old Greek tragedian. I mean, Aeschylus, every year, some play, sort of like winning at Cannes, gets to be performed at the expense of the city, who pays off the chorus and the whatever costumes or so whatever they need, and each year a different play wins at Sundance or whatever. And but what's odd about it, and I don't think we have anything like that, is that they like this play so much, the people in Athens, that they're willing to pay to perform it every year, alongside whatever the winner is for that year. They hear the Oresteia, they see the Oresteia again. And you'll see how moving that is, but I don't want to jump ahead. You can ask yourself, why are they so moved by it? How do we know that they're so moved by it? Let me think. So they are, okay, I just wanted to tell you. So now, so Aeschylus has seen this value conflict. I mean, it takes a lot to see that. Like it takes a lot to know that you say okay when you try to get somebody off the phone. It's so much in the background of what you do and you've just picked up by imitation. But Aeschylus is a genius, a superstar, and he understands this conflict. And now I'm going to sort of tell you all the ways he understands it. And so here they go. There are, I hate to be, can you come and write on the board? Because when I do, it's so dyslexic that you might as well not write it. Okay, it's going to be a long column, so start this and then you can push it up and go further down. Okay, so the basic one is that they're the old gods that have been around forever practically, not really, but for a long time. They are the Furies, sometimes called the Erinyes, later in the play called the Eumenides, and they go back even before Cronus. In that chart of the gods they go back to the castration of Uranus by Cronus, and they're so primitive, and they're not just cross-cultural, but almost like animal instincts. And versus the new gods, especially Apollo, alias Luxius. I'm giving you some names that are all over the place when the chorus talks. If I had time, and I'm going to make time when I get back from this trip going on, I just want to comment on the first speech in the Oresteia, where the chorus names the Greeks with about 5 different names, the names of the Trojans with about 5 different names, the names of the Argives and Agamemnon, and it's just incredibly hard to follow. Don't be upset if you can't follow the first speech, but I wish I could, decode it to you for you today, but there are such important, interesting issues on the table that I don't want to do that. Okay, so we're going on. Now I hear myself saying okay all the time. But that's all right. I'm part of the culture. So new gods. So then on the side of the new gods, they are all women. And it would be more symmetrical if on the side of the old gods, they were all men, but they're not, of course. There's Athena in there, and Aphrodite, and who's the animal lady, Artemis, and so forth. But there are certainly no men among the Furies. Now, every once in a while, this is the kind of thing I would go into more if I had more time. Every once in a while, the translation talks about the Furies. He will drink another cup of blood. You just have to keep your eyes open. What in the world is going on there? Well, how many of you know German? The German is the best example. German has 3 genders, neuter and masculine and feminine, and nouns have genders. But the genders don't really fit with their actual genders. The most interesting example is das Mädchen. That's the neuter gender, but Mädchen is the name for girl. So if you refer back to the das Mädchen, you would have to say it. So anyway, that's what happens with the Furies. The Furies seem to be masculine gender grammatically. So when you refer to the Furies with a, relative pronoun, I think it is, then you have to say he. Don't let it fool you. There are no he Furies. And it's important to keep this distinction as clear as possible. Okay, the women are associated with the earth and fertility, and the men are associated with the sky and something like clarity, and the earth people are local. That is, you can think of it as this way, that, oh yeah, you've got all the pieces of this. I could give you more, but then I guess I need them. Hey, that's beautiful. So it's interesting that the earth ones are also the local ones. That is, it's your plot of ground where your house is. And the sky ones are the universal ones. Whereas there's sort of each person has his own place on earth. We're all under the same sky and sort of equally under the same sky. And that's right for these two kinds of values. Then there's dark and light, and I don't think we've got them yet. And night and day, these are all ways that this opposition is described. And high and low, the high gods are in the sky and the low gods are under the ground. And the sky gods stand for this, I can't put in a simple list, the fairness, universality, and rationality. And the Furies stand for old feelings of loyalty and stuff. You're quitting? That's all right. Enough for the time being. Okay, good. I think that there are a few more, but you can go on from there. Dee has done a good job. Thanks. The sky. So let's now you try. Well, what else is there? Family versus strangers. I hope you can tell which is which. Which are the family ones? The Furies, the blood connection, the woman connection, and the strangers would be the ones that can roll all over and don't have to belong to any family. Then there's the tradition. That's the woman's side. That's the Furies again. That's the past. And they're the people who believe in progress. See, the Furies try to claim that their values are best because they've been around forever. The Apollo, I haven't said this, but I say it now, and it's important to bear in mind. Apollo is the official spokesman for the pantheon for the Olympian god. He's their press release person, and he understands. He has the strongest conviction, the most fanatical conviction to universality, lucidity, rationality, and all that. And in the case of time, he doesn't believe in the tradition. He thinks that's where the old fogies are and the primitives. He's all for progress into the future. The new gods must be the right ones because they're the more recent ones, and things must be getting better and better. That's what he thinks. And so there's also feeling, the women one, thinking, the men one. I think we got that one, didn't we? Yes, that's where, yes, we came, that's good. And then there's something like a belief in fairness and universal rights. The women don't have that, the Furies. The men have that, the Apollonians. You can think of it as sort of, what would they each think about bomb shelters? I wrote this long ago when there were still people worrying about bomb shelters. And but it still sounds like a good example. I mean, if somebody else's bomb shelter has been bombed and they come and they want to move in with your family, then the Furies would say, no, this is a different family and we have to keep the food we've got and so forth. Then there wouldn't be any sense of sort of fairness or universal rights, whereas the Apollonians would say, yes, of course, you have to be able to move in your fellow human beings like us. Okay. By the way, it's on 80, I just come across it here, on 83 and 86. I'll just want to give you an example so you won't think I made it up, and you'll know what it looks like when you see it. 83. Oh, I'm in the wrong book. No wonder I can't find it. This book is so easy to open. 83 and 86. Yeah, just once, because it's, after all I've said, you could still believe that I must be mixing things up. Now, hear you this, Clytemnestra's talking, the rights behind my sacrament, by my child's justice, driven to fulfillment by her wrath and fury. Lo, to whom I sacrifice this man. Whoa, what's happening? Oh, I'm looking at the wrong page. Let's try again. Yes, now, the middle of the page. Thus have you set the speech of your lips straight, calling by name the spirit, that's the Furies, they are all called so spirit, thrice glutted, that lives in this race, that's the family of the Orestes people, that lives in this race. From him, deep in the nerve is given. Well, it's not him, it's her. That's that, and you get it again on 86. Again, something about the middle, the spirit in the house, I will endure all things as they stand now, hard though it be. Hereafter let him go forth to make bleed with death and guilt the house of others. Well, it can't be him. You can see that. The ones that are going forth and attacking everybody are the spirits, and the spirits are the Furies. Now, where am I? So you got it. So there are practices for revenge. And I'm still trying to get clear how to describe that, but revenge has got to be some personal thing, the way he's setting it up. You got to know the people you're taking revenge on. You can't just, if you just go out and randomly shoot people, everybody will think that's a bad idea. But only their relatives will have this particular kind of fury that goes with, you're the ones who hurt my family. So that's like the mafia kind of vengeance and kind of justice. That's how the Furies think. They don't care at all about what's happened if it isn't an actual personal, emotional tie that's involved in it. That's all I can say about it so far. I hope people will write papers either telling me I'm wrong, that there's no difference between revenge, vengeance kind of experience and setting the record, and settling the score, which is my best words, I think, for the Odysseus kind of experience. And if you find cases one way or the other, then look in the translations and see which one fits yours. And I'm ready to read all A papers on that subject. Okay, where are we? See, I can't help saying it. It's just built into the culture. Okay, now, the Furies are sometimes described with this and that. Okay. On the cultural level, they are ones. So I've said that, and I'm going to go on to the next without saying anything further. Okay. Now, I believe, happily, that I've gotten to where I can comment on the chorus speech. How we got a lot of time. That's wonderful. I just don't believe it. But let's see what happens. So let's go to the chorus speech on page 36. I really did want to get to this today because I want you to see two things. How convoluted and compressed it is. How basically it's taking for granted all the language and tradition that the Athenians who are watching it already know, and it's because they've seen it lots of times and so forth. And you have to crack it like a crossword puzzle. I mean, it's like a code. So we have to go through it and crack it because these same names and everything keep coming up. So we're going to start on page 36. The first story that the Clytemnestra has set up a communication system, and by these flares, these bonfires, they now know that, quote, top of 36, that Ilium has fallen. Now, why should you know? Why should anybody who doesn't live in Athens back then know that Ilium is also Troy? I wish I could at least explain why that makes sense. It just doesn't to me. It's just another name. That's all there is to it. Ilium is Troy, has fallen, as the shining of this flare, that's her beacon, proclaims. That's the first thing to know. Where are we now? Okay, let's go on. I will make my choral prelude since my lord's dice cast light. This is the guardian who sees the beacon. And, all right, are counted as my own and mine, and so forth and so forth. May it happen, may my king come home, and so forth. Then he says, and you have to, how would you know? How would anybody know? The rest I leave to silence, for an ox stands huge upon my tongue. The house itself, could it take voice, might speak aloud and plain. What's he talking about? Can you tell? I mean, I feel sorry throwing you into this. He's alluding in a way which he doesn't want to say directly that there's a problem with Agamemnon coming home. Namely, his wife Clytemnestra has taken up with his Aegisthus. Is he not the brother? He's not the brother of Agamemnon. He's a family relative. I'm bad at families. If you want to know who's the brother or sister, cousin, and stuff, just read Lattimore. He's fine on family relations. Okay, so, and then he goes on. Where are we now? I don't see the next thing I want to read. 10 years since the great contestants of Priam's right. Do you see that? Oh yeah, I see it right in front of me. In the middle, right after the voice it's just every sentence. 10 years since the great, I'm in the middle of 36. 10 years since the great contestants of Priam's right, Menelaus and Agamemnon. Priam, you know who Priam is? He's the king of Troy. So the years after the great contestant, that is, they're contesting Priam's right to have his son just run in and take Helen. And now it gets murkier and murkier. But I'm going to unravel it for you just to show you that it can be done and that you can do it too. Okay, then what do they see? My lord, twin-throated scepters in twofold power, the kings from God, you should say the divine. It makes no sense, this capital God. If there's any sort of capital God, it's Zeus, but he's never called God with a capital G. So the kings with divine right, you could say. That's the way we would talk about it now. The kings with divine right, the Atridae. What are the Atridae?
Well, they're both the sons of Atreus.
What?
Atreus?
Yes, that's right. The sons of Atreus, and they are, that makes them the Atridae. That refers to both Menelaus and Agamemnon. They put forth 1,000 ships of the Argives. Who are they? They're the people who live in Argos. It's all happening. Remember, that's home. That's Odysseus' home island. And am I getting it mixed up? I don't know. Something wrong in what I'm saying. It's Agamemnon's home. Okay, so, and the 1,000 ships of the Argives, that's Argos, and that's Agamemnon's home. Okay. The strength of it, their cry went shrill from the heart as eagles stricken in agony. Now things get really complicated. We're getting a big simile. The wounded Argives, the brothers, Menelaus and Agamemnon, are represented as eagles whose nest has been damaged, violated. And so it's just like their house. They were eagles, big leaders, and their house, their nest has been violated. And the one who did it is Paris. And now comes, yet someone hears in the air, a god, Apollo, Pan, or Zeus, the high thin wail of the sky guests, and drives late to its mark the fury upon the transgressors. So now it says that their nest, their castles have been violated, and so the family has been violated. So the Furies come in and come in on the side of the two kings whose families have been violated by Paris. Just interrupt me if you think I'm getting it wrong, or if it's even more murky than I think it is. So drives Zeus, the great guest god, the Atridae against Alexander. Now that's a weird one. Remember, Zeus was the god who was the defender of guests and strangers. I mean, that's why it was so bad that they treated Odysseus so badly by throwing the stool at him and so forth. The suitors. They didn't understand that Zeus protected strangers. And now look what's happened here. It turns out that, I've lost where we are, Zeus is the god of guests. That is, he protects. How do I understand this? Wait, I better go back here and find out. So the eagles are stricken.
I think it says that Zeus drives the Atridae against Alexander.
The what? Say it again. Zeus drives the Atridae against Alexander. Yes. And I'm trying to say, what happened? Alexander. Oh, by the way, Alexander is Paris. How will we know? That's part of the code. So Alexander violated the nest, so to speak, of Menelaus and Agamemnon. And Zeus, let's stick to Zeus, they were, in effect, attacked by strangers. And Zeus protects. What does Zeus protect? The host, not the strangers. That's the funny thing. It's switched around. I mean, it doesn't make a big difference in this play, I don't think. But if you're expecting that the Zeus watches over people who come from other worlds, now it's gone. Zeus watches over the hosts, the people who have a home. So let's go on. Let's see now. So drives the fury against the transgressors. The family has been violated, and that's a blood thing. And both the Furies and the sky gods are upset about it. I say here. Let's see if that's right. So it looks like the Furies and Apollo are both upset by this. And you can see this toward the bottom. To all the gods of the city, the high and the deep spirits, the high ones, high, somewhere there's high and low. Yeah, the low and the high. So the high and the deep spirits, the spirits of the marketplace and so forth, all of that has been damaged, is all I can say about it there. And Zeus, the great guest god, drives the Atridae against Alexander. Zeus protecting the hosts, and the guest has done something wrong. And why? And now it comes something that I find unfortunate, as I'm always resisting it. It's always anybody who bad mouths Helen had better be careful, because she's the daughter of Zeus and so forth. But Helen is always getting blamed for the war, and Helen is still, even 500 years after the Odyssey, feeling regret and shame and so forth for having caused the war. The only thing that she's not going to do is say that she's done anything wrong. And I think that that's what, that Aeschylus is joining all these people that were quoted in the Odyssey of saying Helen is a bad person. Where is it now? I've lost it. It's 37. Second what? Second line. Oh yeah, way up there. The Atridae against Alexander for one woman's promiscuous sake. So they blame her, and they don't. And it's part of this thing. It doesn't say that she did a wrong thing exactly, but it always implies a wrong thing, and you shouldn't. I don't know whether you should believe it or not. I think it doesn't matter to Aeschylus anymore whether Helen is how good Helen is. Yeah, you got your hand up.
You weren't quite sure what negative about Zeus, the guest god, was protecting, but I think it's more that he is punishing the guest, which was Paris, through and he's using the Atridae as his tool.
I see. I see. Good. So maybe it is still the same role of Zeus. Paris has violated the principle that guests are supposed to behave. Yeah, I think you're right. He's taking advantage of the fact that they should be open and protect strangers. Okay, yeah, I think that's right. So let us go on here. For the woman's promiscuous sake, and then there's all this fighting, and everybody's getting hurt. And then Menelaus, whose wife has been taken, turns to his brother, and the family oath that the brother will help him. And now where is that? I think I just skipped a page. Am I here that Zeus, the guest god, drives the Atridae against, for one woman's sake? Okay, we've talked about that. So now we can go on. So Menelaus and Agamemnon get together, and now comes the new thing that you have to understand, and which is said so cryptically. I guess you ought to realize that it follows from the fact that this is performed every year, that no matter how difficult and obscure it is, after a few years of it, you begin to understand who all these people are and all these relations are, so Aeschylus doesn't have to fully explain it. So now we're on page 38, and we're told something new that we need to try to figure out. Now, what does these birds do? I have, let's see, middle of the page, how the wild bird portent hurled forth the Achaeans, twin-stemmed power, single-hearted, lords of the youth of Hellas is Greece, with spear and hand of strength to the land of Troicus, that's Troy. Now we can see at least why it's called Troy, even though you can't see why it's called Ilium. So to the land of Troicus, king of birds, to the king of the ships, and so forth and so forth. So what happens? Watched by all, skipping down a little, the birds killed a hare and tore the baby hairs from the hare that they killed, and that's unfortunate. It's going to cause lots of trouble because it's going to upset Artemis. Right now we don't know why it's troublesome, but we just know that it happened. And what's weird is that it starts out as if the two eagles were a simile, as eagles whose nest has been violated and so forth. Now it turns out that they really see the eagles, and what they see, watched by all, and it's no longer a metaphor, as if that really happens. These eagles attack the hare. Then what happens? Well, then a prophet whose job it is to understand these weird happenings has to come in, and at the bottom of 38, the prophet says, it says, the grave seer of the host saw through to the hearts divided, knew the fighting sons of Atreus feeding on the hare. So the eagles feeding on the hare yes, now it's a simile again, are like the eagles in the simile. They are attacking this innocent thing. And then he predicts that they will get rid of crime. But now comes the next interesting thing that you have to understand in order to unravel this. That Artemis is now upset, because Artemis is the goddess who loves cuddly young things. She's the sort of, would be a horse person now, I think. But, and she's very sensitive and full of feelings, but not very bright. She takes in all kinds of nice cuddly animals, even lions and such. And then when they grow up, they cause devastation. And it talks about that, but that isn't something we have to worry about. So Artemis, the undefiled, is angered with pity at the flying hounds of her father. Those are the eagles. Now they're compared to dogs. It's just hard. How in the world can anybody keep track? Eating the unborn in the hare and the shriveling mother. Artemis is sick at the eagles' feasting. Sing sorrow, sorrow, but good went out in the end. I think I should stop for a minute and explain that, which keeps coming up, because that's a very important, very deep story. I mean, that's about what kind of suffering you get in the Oresteia, and how it differs from the kind of suffering that you get in the kind of tragedies you're used to. At some point, I have to tell you that you've all been corrupted in high school by reading, in effect, Aristotle's play review of Euripides' Sophocles, the Aristotle thing called the Poetics. How many read Sophocles, Oedipus, in effect? Lots. And how many read Aristotle's Poetics commentary on the Poetics? Not so many. Okay. Anyway, what's happening when the sorrow, but good went out in the end? You can see that now you've all read Sophocles. You can see something important, that there was a lot of suffering because there was a tragic flaw in Oedipus. You all learned this. Aristotle taught you this by way of your high school teacher. There was a fatal flaw. Then there was Greek word for all these things. Hymetia is the flaw, I think. And then there's a suffering on the part of Oedipus. And then there's the realization that he was prideful. That was his sin. And he accepts his suffering, and he understands his sin. And tragedy is learning through suffering. Now, at a very abstract level, Aeschylus agrees. Tragedy is learning through suffering. But it's all the world difference between a Sophoclean tragedy and a Aeschylus tragedy. The question is sort of what kind of suffering and who learns from it. The Sophocles story that you've been told, and it's right, is a psychological story. It's about something wrong with the character of Oedipus that lets him lose his head and kill his father at the crossroads and go around boasting that he can see further than others people and so forth. There's something personally wrong with Oedipus. He's got to suffer. He's got to learn. He's got to get over it. That isn't going to happen in here. There's suffering, all right, because there's something that's wrong. Oh, that's sure. But it's a different kind of suffering and a different kind of wrong. It's an ontological story. What's wrong is the values. the values in not some personal fault of some person, but there's something wrong with the values in the culture, that they are conflicting and therefore causing all sorts of suffering. And the thing to bear in mind, and I had to put it in somewhere, and I wanted to be sure I could say it today. We have clear examples of what he's talking about. It's still around, and you need to think of how women are treated in our culture, and more earlier, so let's say in Victorian culture or something, where they suffer because certain possibilities are not open to them that are open to the men, and so forth. And even more extremely, Afro-Americans and all people from other races suffer because the way the culture is set up, it keeps them from developing their possibilities and so forth. Now, if that's the cause of the suffering, then how do you fix it? Well, we understand this so obviously for us. I mean, what happened? Women suffered a lot, and after a lot of suffering, good won out in the end, or is winning out in the end. I mean, it's getting better and better anyway. And the black people suffered more and more. And finally, I mean, we can really say with a black president that good won out in the end. And Aeschylus is a big optimist in a way. I mean, notice that this is not individual tragedy. There is no tragic flaw. There is nobody suffering. There is no pride. There is nobody learning anything. It has nothing to do with Sophocles and Aristotle. To me anyway, I just like it better. It's a deeper question. It's a question not about what makes individuals do things wrong and suffer for them, but something about the whole structure of the world limits their possibilities and makes them suffer. And only by suffering and bit by bit sort of overcoming it do they get finally happiness and good wins out in the end. And we're just getting all the pieces, but you should be watching for that. You have to keep your eyes open for who's suffering for what, and how are they overcoming it. That doesn't happen yet till we get to the second play, and we're still in the first play. By the way, did I say what the assignment was? No, I don't think I did, and I want to, so I have to go back here and see what I've got here. I want you to finish reading the Agamemnon by the 23rd, because that's where you see sort of what's going on in this ontological tragedy. So it couldn't be the 23rd, though. What am I thinking? It is a Thursday lecture. Oh, good. Okay, yes, that's right. So finish Agamemnon by the 23rd. Okay, now I still have, but it's a good time to stop for a minute. And you've been all very patient and quiet and nice in the sense of letting me cover a lot of material which I felt guilty for not having covered. But if anybody has been repressing a question or objection or confusion or addition, I'm ready to hear it. I'm also ready to go on because I'd like to finish the chorus speech. So, okay, I'm going on. So where are we? It's still very pretty murky. So we're now on 38. I think we've done it already. Yeah, so we've done that. So now the kings who were seen as if they were eagles, like eagles, are rightly seeking retribution for the violation of what we could call their nest. And now that becomes real. The eagles are hurting and killing the young of the hare. Well, what's happening? They're going to go to war because of their values and because they want justice. And lots of people are going to get killed on both sides. That's the new idea. Young, innocent Greeks and Trojans are going to die because of the way this conflict was set off by Paris. And a seer reports that what's going to happen. Why does a seer see this? Because he's sensitive to the forces in the culture. He's sensitive to what values will win out over what values. There's going to be a big value conflict in a minute. We just have time for it. And you have to see what the big value conflict is and who's going to win out. I could ask to see how many know already, but I think I don't want to get ahead of the story anyway. So the seer saw through to the hearts divided. We're in 38 at the bottom. He knew the fighting sons of Atreus feeding on the hare, and he spoke, with time this foray shall stalk the castle of Priam. They're going to win the war. And he says, Artemis is very upset about this. And Artemis, who's kind to animals, I've said all that, but she's not reasonable, and animals grow up. I said that, but I'll read you where that's getting clear on 57, way back there. Let's see if that's true. Yeah, it comes up again on 57, at the sort of just about 10 lines down. Once a man fostered in his house a lion cub from the mother's milk, craving the breast and so forth, and it was mild and so forth. And then the blood strain came out, and then it went around killing everybody. And the same thing happens with Helen, I take it. When she comes to Troy, she seems so wonderful, loveliness, and eyes melting, and so forth and so forth. And she's there with Priam's people. And then what? To blight her torturers. Zeus, hospitable, sent her fury to make brides weep. I've interpreted it. I'll have to go to my notes. So there's the line. That's Artemis's problem, a problem that is with feeling rather than thinking. If you don't think ahead and you see just the cuddly lion cub, you're missing something important, namely the slaughter of the cuddly little things that the cuddly little things will cause in the future. And Artemis gets so upset at the slaughter, now we're back at that she demands, in effect, the killing of another young thing. Remember I said that the trouble is the war is going to come, and all these, the children of the hare, all these cuddly, nice young things are going to die, and Artemis can't stand that. She wants, and this is so tricky and interesting, what does she do to stop it? She says, and the prophet interprets it, that Agamemnon has to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia. And now, to explain what's going on there, it took years, and I don't think anybody fully understands it, but maybe a colleague of mine who's died recently, and now me, and soon you, will be the only ones to know what's going on. Because why does Artemis, who doesn't like to see lovely young things killed, demand that Agamemnon kill his lovely daughter Iphigenia? That's nothing in here explains that. Aeschylus assumes that you already understand. If any of you understand, you're brilliant. I never understood it, but this colleague, Joe Tussman, who wrote a very funny and good book called Agamemnon and Other Losers, and in there he explains what's happening. I mean, so Artemis is it looks like, I have to explain it in two stages. To begin with, if you're going to go out and do a war in which lots of young people die, then you'd better be prepared to have, and that is young people who people love, children of people, the children of Gold Star mothers who die in the war and come back in body bags, and here they come back in urns. They suffer. That is, the mothers suffer, and Artemis suffers. But the crucial point here is Agamemnon, who loves Iphigenia, has to be ready to sacrifice her if he's sacrificing all these other young people. It's like saying, well, if Bush wants to send off a whole generation to fight in Vietnam, not Vietnam, It's all the same. It keeps happening. Where is it? It's in, tell me, I've forgotten. So it's in Iraq. Yes. So anyway, if Bush wants to send off a lot of young people to go to Iraq, he can't keep his favorite daughter at home. He's got to let her die too. If that's what Artemis understands, and that's right. I mean, it's not fair that the leaders get to keep their kids while the followers have to let their kids be killed. So Artemis says, if you're going to have this war, your daughter's got to die, and you're going to be the one and you're the cause of the war, and you're going to be the cause of your daughter's death, and that's that. But that's too crazy. I said I had to explain it that's Tussman's idea. I think that's brilliant. I think that must be right. I mean, you can't just pull out of thin air. All of a sudden a prophet says, you can't see. By the way, I forgot to tell you, and it's in here, but it's also convoluted. They start out to go into war. Their ships are all set for going, and they get stranded on an island not far from where they took off, and there's no wind, and they run out of food and water, and the soldiers get very rebellious and upset. And then the prophet comes in and says, well, you're right to be rebellious and upset, but you won't get off that island, Aulus, until your leader kills his daughter. And so that's then when Agamemnon has a big problem. But first I saw a hand. Yeah. Why a daughter and not a son? Does he have any sons? I don't think he has any sons. I'm not sure. But, I know why. Well, that's part of my answer. So good, you're the right person. That's the right question to ask, and never mind my first response. There's a better answer. Okay, so Tussman's got the first half of the answer. Now we know why the prophet demands the sacrifice of Iphigenia. But now we have a new question. But why would she just because all these nice young people are being killed, you don't want to add one more nice young person being killed? She's not very smart. But that's beyond belief in foolishness. And so what is she thinking? Well, this is my breakthrough, which I hope my students will pass on. What is she thinking? She's thinking, he loves that beautiful, tender daughter. He's not going to sacrifice her. He's going to go home and call off the war. So if I make the stakes of having the war high enough, I can prevent the war and save all these people. She can't imagine that anybody would just go kill their most lovely, beautiful daughter. And what happens? Well, he can hardly do it. She's right. Almost right. He's ready to, he's stuck. He doesn't know what to do. And it gets very unhappy about all this. I may look at my pages, but I may just talk about it. I was going to quote. Here we are. Okay. So he's got to make a choice. And he's got this terrible choice because if he doesn't do it, he doesn't kill her, the soldiers are going to be very upset that they've all been set out in this glorious war. And now just to save a member of his family, he's calling off the war and everybody's going home. He loses they'll have contempt for him. He won't have the power to be a good king and a good, what do you call it? What is the president called when he's head of the army and everything? Yes, he won't be a good commander in chief if he just lets the prophet talk him out of the war. So he's got to do it if he's going to keep his role as king. On the other hand, he's a father, and he loves the daughter, and he's got to not kill her. So here we are. The soldiers are starving, and this is where we'll just get us where all the tragic stuff starts, which is where we want to be. Finally, he's thinking, what can I do? What can I do? And there seems to be a sacrifice coming up. And I just want to get the crucial lines. So finally, he decides he's going to have to kill her. His being a king with divine right trumps being a father who really loves your daughter. And he's a man. He's got this kind of a Apollo-like way of looking at things. So he sees, though he doesn't want to do it, he keeps postponing it. He says, I was looking for that passage. he says, I got it on page 41. My fate is angry if I disobey these, those are the soldiers, but angry if I slaughter this child, the beauty of my home, with maiden blood staining these fathers' hands. Which of these things goes without disaster? How shall I fail my ships and lose my faith of battle? That's his, the way the leader as king. For them, the troops, to urge such sacrifice of innocent blood angrily, for their wrath is great, is right. And then it's wonderful. May all be well yet. He just postpones it. He can't make a decision like that. But then finally, he sees he has to. When necessity's yoke was put upon him, then at the bottom, with guards against the lips' sweet edge to check the curse cried on the house of Atreus by force of bit and speech drowned in strength, he kills her. And that's the chorus doesn't quite say it, but that's what they say on 42. What happened next I saw not, neither nor speak it, and so forth. And what really happens in the myth is she gets whisked away just at the last minute, so he doesn't kill her. But Aeschylus doesn't like that. I mean, it works for his tragic story that he does kill her. That sets up the family versus the king, the sky gods versus the earth gods. It sets up it brings in the whole conflicted thing around Iphigenia. So he tries to put it off. He can't. He kills her. And then, and so if you ask, well, did he do the right thing? Well, the answer is, from the point of view of the sky gods, he did the right thing. He kept his divine right of king, and he kept his oath of help to his brother, and he kept, all of that. But from the Furies' point of view, he did the right thing. He did the wrong thing. He killed his daughter, and so what are you? The sky gods, let me just read what I wrote here, will tell you he was a brave hero sacrificing his daughter for a just war. And that's fine. And the Furies will say that all these body bags are coming back, these young men are dead, Agamemnon did the wrong thing, he sacrificed his child for this stupid, senseless war. And the interesting thing is, they're both right. That's the conflict of values in the culture, just coming to a focus in her. That each the Fury people, and these people with these powers, let's call them, they're not really people anymore. They're not walking around intervening. These powers have one way of seeing what's right, one way of seeing what's just. These powers have another way of seeing what's just. Each of them seems right. Each of them, if it's right, the other one must be wrong. So we've set up now a tragic conflict in the practices of the culture, not in any person. And now we have to have some kind of ontological resolution, having got ourselves into this ontological mess. Okay.